Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's United hosted Jose Mourinho's Spurs in the Premier League. Both teams will be looking to qualify for the Champions League at the very least come the end of the season, so this encounter could have helped to send an early season statement. In the end, the match ended 6-1 to Spurs, thanks to goals by Ndombele, Son, Kane and Aurier, whilst Fernandes netted for United. The XG indicated it was a deserved win, of course, 3.3 to 0.87. The XG time map also shows that even before the sending off, United struggled to create quality chances, penalty aside. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. As always, a shout out to everyone who's been able to support Football Made Simple on Patreon. If you want to consider helping to support the channel, whilst getting early access to videos and exclusive videos, head on over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple. A quick reminder of the formations used by both sides, as seen on the OneFootball app. OneFootball will get you match updates, formation updates, as well as player and team stats, and so much more. And the best part is, you can get it absolutely free through the sponsored link in the description below. Let's start with what United initially looked to do in possession, primarily when it was 11 versus 11. In the early stages, United looked to play out from the back through the centre-backs, and initially, Spurs didn't press too high, opting instead for a mid-block and trying to cut off the easy passing lanes. Although at times they did press high, and they managed to get one of their goals in this manner. United would often look to shift into a back three during the build-up though, which could be achieved in different ways. In scenarios where Mason Greenwood stayed wide on the right, Wan-Bissaka could stay deeper and form the back three, allowing Shaw higher on the left and Greenwood to be 1 versus 1 against his man if he received the ball here. Alternatively, either Pogba or Matic were happy to drop into the defensive line, which would then allow Wan-Bissaka to join the attack much higher up on the right hand side, whilst Fernandes pushed deeper on the pitch. But Spurs' midfield were often drawn high into the press, and because Rashford, Greenwood and Fernandes were constantly threatening with runs in behind, the backline often couldn't join the press to compress the space between the lines. So, in these scenarios, we often saw Greenwood move infield, and he was easily found between the lines to turn and try to create. Alternatively, when Greenwood was wide, with Wan-Bissaka forming the back three, it was Fernandes who was often found rather easily between the lines. But when United did get high, they liked their wingers to come infield to create the central overload. This meant that when the ball did go wide to the fullbacks, there would be plenty of numbers ready to attack the box to get on the end of any potential crosses. But once United were down to 10 men, their attack was almost non-existent, as they opted for damage limitation. But what were Spurs looking to do with the ball? Initially, when it was 11 versus 11, if Lloris didn't have any options, he was happy to go long, looking to find Harry Kane's head. However, whenever possible, they looked to find the fullbacks, and United still looked to pressure as much as they could. Højbjerg looked to drop in between the centre-backs, allowing the fullbacks to push much higher up the pitch, as shown in the average positions. With Højbjerg deep, Spurs now had a man less in the midfield, so to even things up, one of the forwards would usually drop in, usually Kane, although Son was as capable of performing this role. And when United tried to get 3 versus 3 with their forwards, they faced major problems, primarily because if the winger was bypassed, they were now down in the wide area. They could often receive the ball easily because Spurs would keep a winger high and wide to tie up a fullback, especially on this left-hand side. This would leave Wan-Bissaka with decisions to make. If he stayed deeper, Reguilón would have space to advance uncontested, and he often looked to find men infield in dangerous positions. But when Wan-Bissaka pressed Reguilón, this often caused even bigger problems, as it meant that the entire United backline had to shift across, with Bailly and Maguire looking to cover. Lamela on the far side would also ensure that Shaw would tuck in, and Aurier from his high position could attack the space, and the quick switches to him were effective, giving him space for crosses as well as shooting opportunities. Importantly, Sissoko from his position as the right central midfielder was happy to move across on the cover to prevent any transitions. We see elements of this in the fourth Spurs goal. The ball breaks to Sissoko in the midfield, with Højbjerg in the backline, allowing Aurier and Reguilón high, whilst Kane makes up the midfield numbers. Rashford and Greenwood are high, rather than covering the respective fullbacks. Sissoko completes the switch to Aurier, who is in acres of space. He takes his time to deliver the cross to Son, who finishes expertly. So at times, United tried to adapt to this by instead pushing Fernandes high on the press, allowing one winger to stay deeper, usually Greenwood, as Spurs tended to attack down the left, and this helped to prevent the wide overload. Although of course, this left them underloaded in the midfield when Kane dropped deep. But soon, Martial was sent off, and United's shape changed initially to a 4-3-2, with Rashford and Martial high. This, of course, meant that they were back to being light in the wide areas, something which Spurs took advantage of with a familiar pattern as they would look to get wide on the left, as we see for the fifth goal. Wan-Bissaka is 2 versus 1 down against Reguilón and Son, and he is drawn out, and Bailly has to come across to cover Son, and the rest of the backline shifts across. Lucas, on for Lamela, comes narrow, ensuring that Shaw has to tuck in as well. With no winger for United, Aurier has a free run on Pogba's blindside and gets into good space in the box to finish. Soon, United instead shifted to a deep 4-4-1 to ensure that they doubled up in the wide regions, but of course by that point it was too late and the game was a foregone conclusion. Overall, it was a humiliating scoreline for United, although of course Oli will point to the sending off as a key moment, and it was. However, even before the sending off, Spurs were in the ascendancy. But what did you make of the match? What could Mourinho and Oli have done differently during the match? Is Oli the man to take United forward? Comment down below. And a huge shout out to everyone on Patreon, including LJ Lee, Nader, Eddie Usman, and Miguel, who have recently joined the Ultra tier. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.